but I love my country more. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. It's about we, the people. We can never forget that. And I never have.
Biden sidesteps hard truths in first speech since quitting race. It was Joe Biden's first chance to define how he will be judged by history. In a rare televised address from the Oval Office on Wednesday night, his first public comment since he abruptly ended his re-election bid on Sunday, he spoke of his accomplishments. He spoke of his humble roots. He sang the praises of the American people. He said the future of American democracy lies in their hands. What he didn't do, despite saying he would always level with Americans, was provide a direct explanation for the biggest question of the day. He didn't say why he has become the first incumbent president to abandon a re-election bid just a few months before voting begins. And that is what the history books will be most interested in. He hinted at it. He talked around it, but he never tackled it head on. It was left for the American people to read between the lines. In recent weeks, Mr. Biden said, "It's become clear to me that I need to unite my party." He then echoed what has become a growing chorus among Democrats that it was time to pass the torch to a new generation. While he said his accomplishments, which he listed in detail, merited a second term in office, he added that nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy, and that includes personal ambition. Left unsaid was the cold, hard reality that he resigned because it was becoming increasingly clear that he was going to lose to Donald Trump in November. And that is an outcome that those in his party universally view as catastrophic. Trailing in the polls, embarrassed by a miserable debate performance, and with a growing chorus in the Democratic Party calling for him to step aside, there was no clear path to a Biden victory. While the president may not have said it, his Republican predecessor and now former rival for the White House had no such qualms. At a rally in Charlotte, North Carolina, a few hours before the address, Donald Trump said Mr. Biden dropped out because he was losing badly. Then he went on the attack against Kamala Harris, the party's new presumptive nominee, claiming that she was a radical left lunatic and the ultra-liberal driving force behind every single Biden catastrophe. Republican groups have been flooding the airwaves in key battleground states in an attempt to define Ms. Harris in their terms, not hers. According to research by the Associated Press, Trump's side is slated to outspend their Democratic counterparts 25-1 over the course of the next month. One advertisement had been saying Ms. Harris was complicit in covering up the president's obvious mental decline. Mr. Biden's speech offered a nationally televised primetime opportunity to provide a rebuttal to the attacks against his vice president and to firmly address concerns about his ability to continue to fulfill his presidential duties. It was an opportunity he mostly passed on. Towards the end of his speech, the president did talk up his running mate. He said Ms. Harris was experienced, tough, capable, and an incredible partner for me and a leader for our country. They were strong words, but there weren't many of them. He spent more time discussing Benjamin Franklin than he did Vice President, the person he endorsed on Sunday and the one who will be the most important torch carrier for his legacy in the months ahead. With little cover from the president, Ms. Harris and her team will have to decide whether and how to respond to the withering Republican attacks in the coming days. Mr. Biden may have another chance to tout his former running mate at the Democratic Convention in Chicago next month, but this is a delicate time for the new presumptive nominee, as her campaign is just lifting off the ground and Americans are still getting to know her. The president may have been uncomfortable being overly political in this what could be his final Oval Office address. But if he is concerned about his legacy, Harris's success or failure, more than anything else he does from here on out, matters. It will determine whether history judges him as a man who made a noble sacrifice or one who put his party at risk by selfishly holding on to power for too long. The best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation, the president said in a rare Oval Office address, and he told voters, history is in your hands. President Biden delivered remarks from the Oval Office on Wednesday on his decision to abandon his bid for re-election. The following is a transcript of his speech as recorded by the New York Times. My fellow Americans, I'm speaking to you tonight from behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office. In this sacred space, I'm surrounded by portraits of extraordinary American presidents. Thomas Jefferson wrote the immortal words that guide this nation. George Washington showed us presidents are not kings. Abraham Lincoln implored us to reject malice. Franklin Roosevelt inspired us to reject fear. I revere this office, but I love my country more. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. But in the defense of democracy, which is at stake, I think it's more important than any title. I draw strength and find joy in working for the American people, but this sacred task for perfecting our union is not about me. It's about you, your families, your futures. It's about we the people, and we can never forget that. And I never have. I've made it clear that I believe America is at an inflection point. On those rare moments in history when the decisions we make now determine our fate of our nation and the world for decades to come, America is going to have to choose between moving forward or backward, between hope and hate, between unity and division. We have to decide, do we still believe in honesty, decency, respect, freedom, justice, and democracy? In this moment, we can see those we disagree with not as enemies, but as, fellow Americans. Can we do that? Does character in public life still matter? I believe you know the answer to these questions because I know you, the American people, and I know this. We are a great nation because we are good people. When you elected me to this office, I promised to always level with you, to tell you the truth. And the truth, the sacred cause of this country, is larger than any one of us. Those of us who cherish that cause cherish it so much. The cause of American democracy itself, we must unite to protect it. In recent weeks, it has become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in this world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. It's the best way to unite our nation. I know there was a time and place for long years of experience in public life. There's also a time and place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices. And that time and place is now. Over the next 6 months, I will be focused on doing my job as president. That means I will continue to lower costs for hardworking families, grow our economy. I will keep defending our personal freedoms and civil rights, from the right to vote to the right to choose. I will keep calling out hate and extremism, making it clear there is no place in America for political violence or any violence ever, period. I'm going to keep speaking out to protect our kids from gun violence, our planet from climate crisis as an existential threat. I will keep fighting for my cancer moonshot so we can end cancer as we know it because we can do it. I'm going to call for Supreme Court reform because this is critical to our democracy. Supreme Court reform. I will keep working to ensure Americans remain strong, secure, and the leader of the free world. I'm the first president of this century to report the American people that the United States is not at war anywhere in the world. We will keep rallying a coalition of proud nations to stop Putin from taking over Ukraine and doing more damage. We'll keep NATO stronger, and I will make it more powerful and more united than any time in all of our history. I will keep doing the same for our allies in the Pacific. When I came to the office, the conventional wisdom was that China would inevitably surpass the United States. That's not the case anymore, and I'm going to keep working to end the war in Gaza, bring home all the hostages, and bring peace and security to the Middle East and end this war. We're also working around the clock to bring home Americans being unjustly detained all around the world. We've come so far since my inauguration. On that day, I told you as I stood in that winter, we are stood in a winter of peril and a winter of possibilities. Peril and possibilities. We were in the group of the worst pandemic in the century, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. We came together as Americans. We got through it. We emerged stronger and more prosperous and more secure. Today we have the strongest economy in the world, creating nearly 60 million new jobs, a record. Wages are up, inflation continues to come down, the racial wealth gap is the lowest it's been in 20 years. We are literally rebuilding our entire nation, urban, suburban, and rural and tribal communities. Manufacturing has come back to America. We are leading the world again in chips and science and innovation. We finally beat Big Pharma after all these years to lower the cost of prescription drugs for seniors. And I'm going to keep fighting to make sure we lower the cost for everyone, not just seniors. More people have health care today in America than ever before. I signed one of the most significant laws helping millions of victims and their families who were exposed to toxic materials. Most significant climate law ever in history of the world. The first major gun safety law in 30 years. And today, the violent crime rate is at a 50-year low. We are also securing our border. Border crossings are lower today than when the previous administration left office. I've kept my commitment to appoint the first Black woman to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. I also kept my commitment to have an administration that looks like America and be a president for all Americans. That's what I've done.